crafters, and welcome back to the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from Designs by D, and today I'll be sharing this gorgeous floral card. Now, it looks like a complete background, but I did try to make it a frame. You could call it a frame, you could call it a background. Either way, it looks really pretty, and I hope that you'll definitely give this a try. So the star of today's card is going to be the You Inspire Me stamp set and the coordinating dies. Now, if you don't have these, the set in particular, you could find something that is similar. There are a lot of gorgeous florals in the Crafty Meraki store. Everything I'm using today is going to be linked in the description below, so be sure to check that out if you're looking for these specific products. I'm taking the large floral. There's like a smaller sized floral and then a few really small pieces. I'm taking all of those. I left one little bud that I didn't use because I figured I wouldn't use it. I have a lot of images here. So I'm taking these 5 stamps. I'm placing it in my stamp positioner here. I'm stamping it out on a piece of white cardstock. Now, as I do this, you could stamp this out by hand, but I find the stamp positioner comes in handy because we're going to do a little trick later on where I'm going to show you how to cut these all out in one go and save a lot of time. So I stamped all those out. I stamped it out twice, so on 2 pieces of white cardstock. So I basically have 2 of the same image with all of those stamps all together. I'm going to go ahead and start coloring. Now, I am going to speed up the coloring process because I'm not doing anything too crazy. I'm doing a bit of flicking, a bit of shading here and there, but nothing too drastic. I've chosen 3 tones of the color. For the flowers, I'm using rose quartz as my lightest tone, pink diamond as the middle tone, and rubelite as the darkest tone. Now these are all Altenew artist markers. If you have Copics, 100% you can find equivalents in Copics. You just kind of have to match up the colors, or you can use a whole different set of colors that you choose to use. I've chosen these colors because I think that it just goes along well with the teal color in the background that I'm going to be using. So that's the whole reason for choosing the pinks and the greens I did. And the greens I chose were a little bit of like they have a bit of a yellowish tone to it. And I thought that kind of offsets the color, like the bluer color in the teal, so that it stands out a little more and everything kind of has a bit of contrast so you can see everything. Now, as I said, I will be coloring this in. I'm doing it pretty quickly. I'm going to show you one portion of it and I'll do the rest off screen because, I mean, coloring's coloring. I don't want to waste your time just showing you a whole bunch of coloring. But I did end up coloring all of the flowers on this panel along with the second panel that we stamped out. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the leafy portion, the foliage. I've already colored in the petals and everything, so I'm using some greens. As I mentioned, these greens have like a yellowish tone to them so that they'll stand out on the teal cardstock that I'm going to be using. I'm using swamp green, matcha tea, and aloe vera. I've listed all the colors if you happen to have these same markers and you wanted to use them as well. If you don't, you can find equivalent in Copics or any other types of markers that you have, or you could choose your own set of markers, as I've already said. So basically I'm just coloring everything in. Again, I'm just shading and flicking, nothing important here. The main thing, and I will be completely honest, this was like messy coloring for me. It was a lot of coloring to do, especially stamping out the 2 panels. So I did it as messy as I could in order to get it done, but still keep some of the flicking and the shading. So it really is something that over time, as you color more, you can get used to, and you can just, you can realize that the messy look where it's not, you know, too detailed or you're not going over it with too many colors. That works as well, and you'll notice the final card looks absolutely stunning. So as I've said, I mean, I try to reiterate this in a lot of my videos that you don't have to be a professional to make any of these. You know, you just try your best, and then as you go on, you build your skills and you learn and you do better, and each thing that you make looks better than the last, and that's just basically how art goes. So now I'm just coloring the centers of the flowers with some Rocky Shore and some Mocha. So these are just some browns. There's 2 tones. Because it's a smaller area, I don't need to use 3 tones. And a lot of it's kind of covered in ink anyways. So as I was saying, you can see here, I didn't do anything too extreme with my coloring. It was a little bit messy, but look at how it turned out. And I also want to let you know that if you do go out of the lines just a little bit, like the outer outline, don't worry about it. We're going to do something to basically correct that after we do our die cutting. So the first thing I'm going to do here is set up my dies. So I'm setting them up on this panel, and I'm only going to have to do this once. So this was the little trick I was telling you about in the beginning. Since we've stamped this all out on the stamp positioner, all of the stamped images should be in the exact same position on both panels. So when I set up my dies, I only really have to do it on one panel, and then I'll show you how I can use it to cut out the second panel without removing things and, recentering them on the image and everything. So I've gone ahead and put that through my die cutting machine. You can see it cut out gorgeously. I'll pop out all of the little bits. Remember, there's 5 pieces. Put them to the side, put them in a little bowl. And here is how we're going to do this little trick. So the only thing you may have to do is just to double check, realign it with all your images here like you would do a die set that cuts out multiple images. Then carefully put this through your die cutting machine and separate the 2 panels. You'll see that it cuts out the second panel perfectly. So look at that. I didn't have to, that saved me a bunch of time. So that's a neat little trick you can do when you're cutting out multiple things with different dies and you've used a stamp positioner, so you're doing like double images. So for my panel, as you can see, I said I have that teal colored background, and you can see how the colors just kind of pop on that teal, even though I've used a green, which could potentially mix in with the teal. Sorry, there's a bit of sunlight there. I'm doing this in the evening, and I'm eventually going to close my blind so you can see better. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone through the markers that I have, and I've picked the one that closest matches the teal cardstock for a background. Just pick any marker that's as close as possible. I ended up choosing Desert Night again from the same set of markers, and I am just going to color in the outline. Now, if you're not into this and you think that your coloring wasn't that messy, you kept everything in the lines, you're all good, then don't bother with this step if you really don't want to. But I feel like it creates a nice, like rather than having the harsh white to kind of break up the flowers in the background, this just really blends it in a little more, so you see more of that floral image. It just gives a bit of a different look. I think both looks are equally stunning, but I just wanted to try something a little different here and have this blend in a little more and not have that stark white outline with my die cuts. So I'm not going to show you all of this again. I went through all of the die cuts and I basically just used the finer point and colored in all the edges. And now you'll see when you put this on top of the card panel that we cut out, it's going to look really pretty. So sorry, I'm just getting my daughter to close the blind for me here. And there we go. We can see everything nicely. So now that I've got all those pieces ready, I can kind of start putting this together. I've got an A2 sized side folding white card base. I'm just going to attach that teal cardstock that we cut out. Again, that's A2 size, so it matches perfectly. You can see when I put these die cuts on top, that outline color was seamless. It looks like this is like right on the card and there's no die cut, which is the look I'm going for. It looks really nice. And all I'm going to do is kind of put these flowers on either side more towards the corner and organize them as kind of like a mirror image of each other. A mirror image on the diagonal there from one corner to the next. And that's how I'm going to create my frame. So as I said, the 2 larger florals are pretty large, and I didn't want to cut too much of it off. So the frame ends up looking more like a background. However, if you do want this to look more like a frame and have more clear, like plain space in the center of your card, you can always do this with the die cuts you have here. All you have to do is have them hanging off the edge of the card a little more. So just pull them back on all 4 edges, and then you're just going to end up cutting off more of that die cut, and that'll give you more of an open frame versus mine, which is very full and closed. So that's what this card is here. It's a full frame so that it kind of looks like a background. You just get a little bit of space where you can put your sentiment, and even that, my sentiment's overlapping everything. I found it hard after all that coloring to cut off so much of the florals, so it did end up being more of a full frame here. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong like that. It actually looks pretty stunning. So now you can see that the two larger florals I attached with foam adhesive. This also creates some depth. It creates some dimension. Now you can kind of see that those larger florals are kind of more in the forefront, and then the smaller ones I'm using just plain tape runner to attach them. So they're kind of like tucked in behind. So you get like a nice scene kind of going on here. So I've added everything to kind of create the entire frame around all four edges. And then there's two really small flowers that I'm just going to add with small foam squares to either corner just to kind of break up that leafy bit that I've got going on so that it looks a little more full, which is the goal for today, making that full frame. And you can see from the side there, there's a lot of dimension. It looks really pretty. So for my sentiment, I'm using the Meraki Moments Hay die. This is really nice because I can cut out the main portion and then also the shadow. Main portion of it I'm cutting out of some like champagne glitter cardstock. You could use whichever kind of cardstock you want. I did kind of look at it afterwards and think maybe I should have used like a solid mirror cardstock or done some foiling instead of using the glitter, but I think it looks pretty. I mean, it adds a little bit of shimmer, which I think the card needed because it's pretty flat in terms of colors. So I've gone ahead and cut out that hay, and I use my mini die cutting machine to do that, which I really find comes in handy on my craft space when I don't want to use my large die cutting machine. And I've had people ask me this before, why don't you do your die cutting on camera? One, it takes a lot of time for me to move my huge die cutting machine, and because it's the larger machine, I tend to make larger cards. I do card insides as well sometimes, and so I like the larger machine versus the medium-sized one. So even if I did get it on camera, you probably wouldn't see all of it anyways. So I do all my die cutting off scene, and if you do see me do any, it's with the small one here on camera. So now I've cut out the background from the teal, the shadow die with the teal cardstock, so it kind of blends in there. And then I'm just adding the glitter hay onto that shadow. And I'm just using some liquid glue. I figure I have enough dimension going on here. I normally would add some foam adhesive, but I thought I had enough dimension. I'm not going to add any more. So I've gone ahead and added this here. And I'm just going to then add some glue to the back of this and just place it in the center of the card. And you can see it looks pretty nice. I think maybe one other change I might have made is to make that black glitter cardstock so the hay stands out a little more, but I think the gold, it's a little more subtle. It just blends in a little more, and then you have more focus on the florals. Now for my my gems or my bling, I am going to be using the gold opal gems in Sparkle Magical Iris. Sometimes I like to use a mix. I find that a mix kind of enhances your card and gives it a bit of a different look. So I'm adding these in clusters of 3 or 2, and then I always like to add an odd number on my card. Now lately I've been having some issues with my placement of gems, and I don't always like how it looks in the end, so I normally just put down my glue dots and then I'll put the gems wherever, but this time I'm kind of planning it a little and I'm putting down the gems first and then I will glue them down. I don't feel so confident in my placement of gems lately, so this is how I like to do it, and I'm sure you've probably seen many other crafters do it this way as well. So I like to place it down, then put down my glue, and then I'll just use my Bling Buddy to attach everything. And that is pretty much going to be my card for today. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video and that you'll give this technique a try. As I mentioned, everything's listed in the description below. And please let me know how you like this card, if you think it turned out well. And I definitely would love to see your comments and respond to you. I hope that you guys have a great weekend, and be sure to tune in to us next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for notifications for future videos. Have a great weekend. Bye.